Visit a Spectrum store today.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Federal judge is allowing the Trump administration to move forward with its plan to dismantle USAID in a decision that is likely to be appealed. Well, thousands more federal workers have been fired at multiple agencies, including the CDC, IRS, and also Homeland Security. Also on Friday, Trump's controversial pick to lead the FBI, Kash Patel, was sworn in. Outside the U.S., the president continued to criticize Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Luigi Mangione appeared in New York State Court Friday for a status hearing in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The hearing was largely procedural, with Mangione's defense asking a judge to delay a motion schedule. Well, the 26-year-old pleaded not guilty to state charges of murder, and dozens of supporters showed up outside the courtroom.
I believe that there's so many people who have been negatively affected by health care, and millions of people have lost their lives. And Luigi is fighting for those people who have lost their lives.
And Israeli authorities say they are receiving the actual remains of a body said to be that of hostage Shari Bibas. Israel vowed revenge for failing to return Shari during an exchange Thursday with other hostages. Hamas has agreed to release 6 more hostages on Saturday. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Tim Boehm, political anchor at Spectrum News, in for Errol Lewis. We launched this program last year to focus on the biggest deal that there is in America, the future of our country. With a new administration and a new Congress, we will cover the new people, policies, and politics that are shaping the nation. President Donald Trump has officially been in office more than a month now, and the big deal this week was the rising political tensions between the United States and Ukraine as the Ukraine-Russia war hits its 3rd year. President Donald Trump appeared to blame Ukraine for Russia's invasion, following pushback over negotiations held between American and Russian officials that excluded the Ukrainian government. The president went on to echo a Russian talking point, calling on Ukraine to hold new elections, calling its president, Volodymyr Zelensky, a, quote, dictator without elections. We'll get to all that and more, but first, here's a look back at some of Trump's comments this week and reaction from lawmakers.
A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he's not going to have a country left.
The president speaks for himself. What I want to see is a peaceful result, a peaceful outcome.
You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Unfortunately, he lives in this disinformation space.
It certainly reflects what has long been Russian talking points.
I think there's one person that Putin really is afraid of, and that's Trump.
Donald Trump now trying to flip the script on what happened in this war. Frankly, it's embarrassing.
He wants to bring lasting peace to Europe.
That's not going to be easy to achieve, but he's the only one in the world that can begin that process.
There's no profit for anyone in having World War III, and you're not so far away from it, I'll tell you right now.
Joining me now with more on the president's actions are 2 top political analysts. Holly Gregory is an anchor for Spectrum Bay News 9 in Tampa, Florida, and Alex Cohen is a political anchor for Spectrum News Plus based in Southern California. So good to see both of you. Alex, what are the risks of potentially alienating not only Ukraine but other European allies?
There is a significant risk for this country. You know, the ties between Europe and the U.S. have been very, very strong for many decades, you know, forged out of what happened during World War II. And I think there is growing concern that if we cut those ties, you know, yes, it could certainly do damage for the European Union not to have a support from the U.S., but, you know, that support goes both ways, be it our economic ties, our military support during times of attack. I think, you know, that is something that both of these significant players are really going to have to weigh carefully going forward.
So, Holly, you know, we know you've interviewed Secretary of State Marco Rubio countless times over the years. What kind of insight can you give us into how he's handling these meetings with Russian officials, but also concerns from these European leaders?
Well, if you think of Trump as the, you know, iron fist behind this negotiation process, think of Rubio as the velvet glove over the top of it. He's going to follow Trump's directives. He's going to follow Trump's lead on this, but he's also going to try to smooth things over. He's going to try to ease the nerves of our nervous European allies. And as for, you know, his meeting in Saudi Arabia with his Russian counterparts, we know some things that came out of that. Not a lot. He's been pretty tight-lipped about that first meeting, but he did have a phone call with some European leaders over this to do just that, to try and calm some nerves. And he said, first of all, he dismissed the concerns that Ukraine is somehow not at the table when it comes to this negotiation process. And he said, look, we can't negotiate with Russia if we're not even talking to them. So this was the initial sit down. Let's try to reestablish our diplomatic relations. Let's try to get our embassies back up and normalized and running. He also told our European allies that he's not sure how serious Putin is when it comes to peace negotiations, and that this was going to be a long process. And he has also, in interviews since that meeting in Saudi Arabia, tried to justify why he believes that Trump is upset with Zelensky and why things have escalated there. Some of it having to do with the rare earth minerals that are in Ukraine that Trump wants a deal over with Zelensky. And Tim, just a little bit of news on that today. At CPAC today, the National Security Advisor said that there has been a deal with Ukraine now, that he expects that to be signed. Michael Waltz said this today. He expects that to be signed on the rare earth minerals very soon. So we'll see if that actually does happen.
Yeah, it could be a big movement on that. Alex, the New York Times has reported out congressional Republicans. They've largely remained quiet on this issue, although some Senate Republicans, they have dissented. So how would you describe the impact, if any, that Republican lawmakers might have as this plays out? Are they just going to support whatever President Trump wants?
You know, I think it's a mix of both, Tim. There are some Republicans on Capitol Hill who've just stood by everything that the president has said and done on this issue to date. But there are others who are drawing a line, saying that some things that the president has been saying simply are not true. Certain characterizations of President Zelensky, kind of holding their ground on this. And, you know, I think this could very quickly and easily become a political tug of war, because there is just simply too much at stake here. And many of these senators who, remember the history here and have deep concerns about what could happen if our relationship with European allies falls apart. But we've seen this play out in the past, right? There are those who initially might express dissent over what President Trump is saying or doing, and eventually they fall in line. Will Ukraine be the one issue where things play out differently? It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, no question. Holly, let's switch gears just a little bit here. Thursday, Senator Mitch McConnell, who led the Senate for 18 years, announced he was not going to run for re-election in 2026. Obviously a polarizing figure in many ways, even within his own party. How might his legacy look like then?
You know, it's complicated. If you look at right now, MAGA, of course, controls the party, and their response is that they're, very frustrated with Rhino Mitch, so they are glad to see him go. But of course, when you're talking about the longest-serving GOP leader in the Senate, has been there for 40 years, it's much more complex than that. And if you look back, Mitch McConnell has done a lot to further the power of the GOP, and he's been an ally in many ways to Trump over the years, even though it's not recognized right now, because recently that's not been the case. But he he first of all stopped Merrick Garland from being on the high court. He shepherded through 3 of Trump's nominees to totally reshape the high court. That's going to reverberate for years to come. And also, he was the leader behind Trump's 2017 tax cuts. So it's much more complicated than just MAGA is on the outs with Mitch. But like he said in his speech to say goodbye, it was time for some new blood in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, we'll see how history looks at this. Real quick, Alex, Friday, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass removed the fire chief, both of whom have been under the microscope since the wildfires. So many questions, Alex, about this, but to be short and sweet, why now, and what does this mean for both of them?
Yeah, for the mayor, I think the reason why she is saying that Fire Chief Kristen Crowley relieved 1,000 firefighters when this wildfire was breaking out, and she said that shouldn't have happened. However, Chief Crowley, or former now Chief Crowley, has said in the past that budget cuts significantly hampered her department. There's also been a lot of debate and discussion about whether or not the mayor's trip to Africa as this fire was breaking out was ill-timed and who was at fault for that. I think the big takeaway here, Tim, is that this is a significant loss when it comes to women in leadership here in the City of Angels.
Alex Hawley, great to see you both. Thank you so much. Coming up, we'll take a closer look at Elon Musk's role in the Trump White House as pushback grows against the Department of Government Efficiency. Stay with us.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Great news, Spectrum Internet customers. Now you can try Spectrum Mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost to you. It's easier than ever to switch. Bring your own device and we'll pay off your phone balance up to $500 per line. Spectrum Mobile brings you a reliable nationwide 5G network you can count on wherever you go. Plus, upgrade your phone anytime, as many times as you want, for any reason when you get Unlimited Plus. Call or visit a store near you. Our specialists are ready to help you switch.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
We're back with a big deal where we're taking a closer look at the growing pushback against Elon Musk's role in the Trump administration. Despite being the face of the new Department of Government Efficiency, the White House says Musk is not, in fact, an administrator, but rather a senior advisor to President Donald Trump. This week, the two sat down for a joint interview with Fox News.
He's doing a very thankless job. It's really a thankless job. But he's helping us to save our country. Our country was in serious trouble. And I had to get the best guy, somebody with credibility.
You know what's better than saying trust me? It's just full transparency. So what we're doing with the Doge, just go to doge.gov. You can see every single action that's been taken.
We did exactly that. We went to the Doge's website, where it claims it has secured $55 billion in estimated savings from its widespread audit of federal agencies. The agency attributes the savings to a combination of workforce reductions, fraud detection, and contract cancellations, just to name a few. So while Doge has the support of the President, Musk taking a lot of heat for the agency's recent actions. Spectrum News reporter Tyler O'Neill spoke to one frustrated American in Kentucky.
These Louisvillians are sending a clear message to the Trump administration. They say Elon Musk must be stopped.
The country of which we are currently living in, was founded on the premise of we the people. Right now, it's only we the rich and we the few up in Washington, D.C.
Kirk Hillbridge served in both the Army and Air Force for over 26 years, and today he's showing his opposition to Musk's involvement in D.C.
And this is not what I was fighting for. A non-elected individual who has the power to make decisions, to fire people, and change administrations, and change policies, and change all the things that are used to help people and the citizens of America that I fought for.
19 attorney generals are suing the Trump administration and alleging that it violated federal law by allowing Doge to access the Treasury Department's payment system.
He's getting into things that he should not have access to and releasing it to people that are not elected.
On Monday, President Trump was asked why Musk has access to the U.S. Treasury payment system. Trump says he only has access to letting people go if the administration agrees.
Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval.
Democratic Congressman Morgan McGarvey spoke at the rally in Louisville. He says the strategy right now is to file legislation and lawsuits to stop what he's calling abuses of power.
It's legislation, litigation, and mobilization to get people out there to have their voices heard at this moment when it matters so much.
The veteran says this is not the America he voted for and not one he wants to live in.
We are the people of America. We need to speak up. We need to be heard.
Hillbrecht says the fight isn't over. In Louisville, Tyler O'Neill, Spectrum News.
All right, joining me now to talk more about Elon Musk and Doge is Owen Higgins, a journalist and the author of Owned, How Tech Billionaires on the Right Bought the Loudest Voices on the Left. So Owen, having written about tech billionaires and their growing or at least evolving role in politics, how do you explain this relationship and what might be motivating Musk?
Well, I think that for Musk, this is motivated by both his personal politics, his right-wing ideology, and also just motivated by, I think, his desire to be more involved in the federal bureaucracy, which has delivered to him many billions of dollars in federal contracts, but has also presented some challenges, whether it is investigations into labor disputes in his companies, or like looking at the different environmental ramifications of some of his rocket launches. For someone like Musk, all of this kind of presents itself as an unnecessary challenge to his business interests. And I think that is probably the main motivator here for him to get involved. And now that President Trump has given him so much power and so much leeway, I think he's taking advantage of it. And I think he's going to probably push it as far as he can go.
So the president has promised that Elon Musk would steer clear of any areas where that could be a potential conflict of interest. Of course, the companies Tesla, SpaceX, and the social media platform X. But this week, Doge began reviewing spending at the Pentagon, where SpaceX does have billions of dollars in contracts. As we just heard from that Fox News interview, Musk is touting full transparency overall. But is that the case here, and how do we know it's all above board?
I wouldn't expect that any of this would be above board, quite frankly. I think that anything that Musk or Trump say where they're representing themselves as rational and fair actors here is something we shouldn't take seriously. Musk has so many contracts with the federal government, as you mentioned, SpaceX primarily, Tesla as well, and X is obviously a social media site that can present information that he wants to put out there. There's really no reason to expect that he is going to use his power and his access to the federal government in a fair or transparent way. I think I think the fact that Trump has said that Elon is going to be able to monitor his own conflicts of interest really says it all. I mean, who would you really trust to monitor their own conflicts of interest if they had that much money and that much access to power? This isn't specifically what I'm saying here is not specifically about Musk. This is about anybody who with that kind of access. And Musk really having the backing of the president and access to a bureaucracy, the federal government, that dwarfs any company on the planet, I think is just an example of somebody who, it's almost like the dog that caught the car, as it were, right? So he is now accessing so much power and so much data that I think he probably doesn't even know what to do with all of it. But that doesn't even really matter. The fact that he has all of this power and this access means that he can't really be trusted to monitor himself. I mean, that's why we have the separation of powers in the government, right? Like the executive branch isn't supposed to operate completely independently of Congress and the courts, and neither are they supposed to operate independently of each other either. There's supposed to be checks here, and it doesn't feel like there's any check to an unelected billionaire who is working with the permission of the president. And Congress and the courts a little bit, they don't seem to be really super invested in dealing with this or checking this power. And I think that the reason that the founders put that into the Constitution, that they put those checks and balances, is so that something like this would not happen, so that somebody would not just have unfettered power and be able to just make all of these moves as they saw fit. So I think that's kind of the situation that we're in right now. And I'm not saying that it's going to spiral out of control here or anything. I'm just saying that without a lot of checks and balances, it's kind of hard to see how any kind of conflict of interest as far as like Musk goes would be treated or dealt with.
Yeah, and everyone wants to know, will the relationship last? And that is going to be something to watch. Oh, and good to see you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time tonight and your expertise. We're not done just yet. Next, the nation's governors come face-to-face with President Trump. We'll bring you all the details. Stay with us.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive, regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
When you know you can go anywhere because you have a connection that's built for everywhere. That's life unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
We're back with the big deal. This week, President Trump appointed a number of governors from across the nation to serve on his Council of Governors. The bipartisan group includes North Carolina Governor Josh Stein, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and New York Governor Kathy Hochul. And on Friday, Trump hosted around 40 governors for the annual National Governors Association.
But I'm delighted to welcome America's governors to the White House. You're amazing people. Even the Democrats are amazing people, some of you. And we've worked together. Actually, we work very well together.
And joining me now with more on that visit is Spectrum News political reporter Kevin Fry from our Washington bureau. So, Kevin, it has been fascinating to watch Democratic governors try to handle this new era. Just today, we saw the president get into it with Maine's governor. This week, we saw President Trump's push to kill New York's congestion pricing for tolls. Governor Kathy Hochul fiery, saying they're going to fight and won't back down. Does this impact New York beyond tolling issues? Is this a long-term thing potentially?
Yeah, I mean, look, and she even went so far as to suggest that Trump was basically treating New Yorkers as, quote, roadkill. She has taken a much more aggressive tone with him in the last week or so. And keep in mind, this comes after the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, decided to sue Hochul over some of the state's immigration laws. You also have Trump and the DOJ interfering, or at least getting involved with a federal case against the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, which has put the governor in an uncomfortable position. So in the face of all of that, you've seen Hochul, who had over the last couple of weeks tried to court the president in a certain way. He obviously likes to be praised. He likes to have someone kiss the ring, and has now taken a much more pointed tack. Now, keep in mind the politics of all of this. One, she's clearly frustrated because he keeps kind of whipping her around. But two, on top of that, she is facing what could be a difficult re-election battle next year. And so in a Democratic state like New York, to be able to show that she is up for the fight, this does arguably probably win her a few plaudits from voters to see her kind of in this aggressive posture. Democrats came into this presidency kind of having a sense of how to deal with it based on their experience the last go around. Now, of course, Trump likes to throw around different rule books, but this isn't like they were coming in blind. This is their second rodeo with the Trump administration.
Well, but on the other hand, in North Carolina, for instance, you have a new Democratic governor. He seems to be taking a quieter approach. Of course, he's trying to get funding for Hurricane Helene relief. Do we know about sort of a bigger picture here about whether there's a strategy going on about how to deal with him, either work with him or against him, kind of as a group of Democratic governors?
Right. The sense seems to be, in talking to some of our colleagues here in the D.C. Bureau that represent some of these other states, that work and cover these other states that obviously have Democratic leaders, is a method of pick your battles. Are you going to go to bat over a particular issue when you really need Trump to come along on another? You have to make a sense of that. So, for example, when it comes to North Carolina, look, they want to make sure that they're taking a more muted approach, that they are being gracious to the president to try to get that support as they deal with disaster recovery, because whether you like it or not, often funding and budget battles about disaster recovery become politicized. At the same time, as our friend Reuben Jones pointed out to me, when it comes to maybe defense of Medicaid, where you see Republicans on Capitol Hill talking about delving into Medicaid, Trump going back and forth on whether or not he may cut Medicaid as part of his budget deal, you can expect the governor to go to bat for the state on that front.
All right, going to be fascinating to watch. Kevin Fry in Washington, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us here on The Big Deal. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned to your local station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices.
The future is here with Spectrum Mobile and the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Galaxy AI. Do more than ever before by handling multiple tasks with a single ask through Google Gemini. And start the day smarter with Now Brief, insights that keep you ahead. Power it all with the fastest wireless speeds from Spectrum Mobile. Order the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with Galaxy AI from Spectrum and get $700 off with trade-in. And now Spectrum Internet customers can try Spectrum Mobile risk-free for a full year at no cost.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now.